Alright, let me pull this up. Boop, boop, boop. And there we go. Hopefully. Come on. Okay, it's taking a second. It's taking a really long second, actually. Ah, there we go. So we're doing something different tonight. Fuck it, we're doing Turnip Boy robs a bank. So if you've never heard of Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion, greetings before you begin. Ask you a few questions. Have you played Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion? I have, so yes. Perfect, you'll understand what's going on here just fine. Now, with playstyle, do you prefer more casual experience? Yeah. So I'm at my last soda, and it's just a plain old root beer. Pretty decent root beer. So from my understanding of this game, this is a game... So Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion was a Zelda-like game, right? It was a Zelda-like where you were a turnip boy, and you were going around a post-apocalyptic world. Basically, it was kind of like... It's not anarchy, but if you play the game and you're like, oh, it's anarchy, I'd see how you get that, but it's actually not, because you got to get the true ending, and in the true ending, it's like evil capitalism, right? It talks about the evils of capitalism, and you're a little turnip boy, and the game ends with you killing God, who is an onion. Wild game. But I really enjoy it. Like, you can beat it in like see, look, God in the background. You can beat it in like a few hours. It's pretty decent. Oh. Fort Fardes. See, 2 days after killing God. What did I say? Yeah, no, it's a cute little game. You know, I like it. And so its sequel came out, and the sequel looks like a roguelite, where it's like, you know, things are randomly generated, and I'm like, oh, you know, that sounds interesting. Kind of reminds me of something like Gungeon, based on the gameplay. And it was just all of a sudden this game came out, and I was like, you know what? Fuck it. We could do whatever else, you know, we could do Splatoon or whatever. Or, you know, we could do something different. So, you know, we're going to work our way through this game over the next, I don't know, while. I'll figure it out. Maybe we'll beat it, maybe we won't, I don't know. So, tonight, story-wise, we've got a few Nintendo things. We got Nintendo things. Switch 2, of course, right? This is the rest of the year. The rest of the year is just going to be Switch 2. Every week there's going to be a new story that's like, hey, did you see this thing about the Switch 2? Oh, the rumor come out. Switch 2 does this. That, until the Switch 2 is officially revealed, I expect that to be every week of this show. So if that... And I know, oh, well, just don't talk about it. Well, yeah, it's like, that when that's the, especially now in January, when that's like the only news story, like, what the fuck else am I supposed to talk about? It's like talking about Twitter and not mentioning Elon Musk and whatever stupid bullshit he's up to this week. This week it was Mr. Beast. He got Mr. Beast to post one of his videos, and then Mr. Beast just gave away all the money he made off of it. And a tweet that, if I didn't know any better, I would say was a scam. Like, the tweet looks like a scam, the one Mr. Beast put out. But that's what he did. Fucking Elon Musk, man. And don't even get me started on the Civil War. Like, oh my god. So we got that. We got, side order stuff. We got some other bad news, layoffs. I'm going to mention Palworld real quick, just because there was an official statement and I kind of want to talk about it a little bit. Not too much, because I feel like Palworld is kind of one of those things where it's like impossible to win. No matter what you do, you're in a losing scenario. And then WIBE, I have like something, and of course we have Percy Jackson, where episode 7 So I guess let's just jump right into it. So I was fully expecting a Nintendo Direct next month. I think there's a very high likelihood of a Nintendo Direct happening next month. However, with the 2 trailers that released this week, I think it's less likely. I mean, we could still get a mini Direct or whatever, they've done that before. But I would have expected something, right? If we are getting a Direct next month, I wouldn't have expected to get the trailers we got this week. So the first one we got was a quick Princess Peach Showtime trailer. It showed off our dear Princess Peach, showed off some of the costumes we hadn't seen before, specifically a ninja costume and a cowgirl costume, cowgirl, whatever term you want to use. Cowpoke. Yeah, whatever term. And it looks fine. There's nothing about that game that blows me away per se, but I think I hope it's fun. I hope it's a fun game. We're just gonna have to wait and see. Yeah, like it was literally just like a 1-minute trailer. Like there wasn't much to it. So yeah, we got that. Yeah. And then the other trailer, the one I actually care more about, we got a new trailer for Side Order. So the Splatoon DLC, I've been predicting for a while, I think since November, end of November, that it was going to come out in February. My original prediction was November, and then at some point they delayed it until like next year, and when they delayed it till next year, I was like, oh, it's going to come out in November. Or it's going to come out in late February, early March. And yeah, sure enough, it is now coming out the 22nd, which is, it was basically a month from the day they put up the trailer, because I think they put up the trailer on the 23rd. And other than that, we see the opening of Splatoon 3, but this time, instead of like this punk city, it's like a future like Chrome City in the background, as the character like slowly falls asleep. And then when they wake up, they're waking up in the Splatoon 2 plaza and Side Order. We really didn't get much more than that. They kept it very simple. And, it looks fine. I'll be honest, we didn't see much of it, but I'm hopeful that in the future we're going to get a lot more, because I am genuinely excited for it. Ooh. I think Side Order is going to be great. It is going to be a roguelite. So at least that's what we think. And I'm excited. It's cool that it's only a month away. I still have not bought the expansion pass. And my prediction still remains the same. For the original expansion pass gave you the Splatoon 1 lobby. And then, it'll unlock the Side Order DLC when that comes out. My prediction for beating Side Order is that you unlock the Splatoon 2 lobby. That I'm going to call that right now. That's my prediction, is you get the Splatoon 2 lobby for beating it. I mean, there's going to be some sort, there's going to be a golden toothpick or something like that. There's definitely going to be this game's equivalent of that somewheres in there. But for the most part, your big, kind of like how in the first DLC, your big reward was playable Octolings. The big reward for this one's going to be the Splatoon 2 lobby. Anything else I would like to see from it? I still really want it to be the wedding, I know it's probably not going to be Pearl and Marina's wedding, but after, over a year of joking about it, I still want it to be true, It's not a joke anymore. I just genuinely think they're amazing. And, I know there's a lot of the speculation that, Marina's probably the villain. Ew. That Marina is probably the villain, and that, Pearl's brain's been put into, a robot or whatever. And, I mean, it's possible, but no, I'd rather have Pearl and Marina's wedding. I think that would be, with all the white, no, it should be a wedding DLC. I just think that would be really cool. They put out a poster as well, and they've got, the poster has, the little, paint light swatches in the background, and they align with the idol colors. So, right, there's Big Man, Shiver, and Frey, and then there's Callie and Marie, and I want to say it's one other. I want to say there's one other color in there. A lot of people have realized that there's like these shadowy figures in the back, and people are like, you know what, these shadowy figures, one of them kind of looks like Agent 4. Oh shit, I just realized we don't have audio. That give us audio? Oh shit. Okay, maybe that gave us audio? Oh shit. I just looked down and I saw on the volume mixer. I don't know why my audio breaks every time. Every time we start up the stream, my audio breaks. Give me 1 second. Alright, there we go. So, side order, you know, it looks like, a lot of people are saying it looks like it's Agent 4, which I think that's interesting. If it really is Agent 4, I think that's cool. You know, it makes sense for it to be Agent 4. But a lot of people have also realized that these, like, figures with, like, the red eyes, they look like the copy machine that's in the lobby in Splatoon 3. So maybe the villain has some sort of connection to that copy machine. I don't know. Honestly, I'd rather have a new... I know a lot of people have this whole Little Judd speculation, that Little Judd is the real villain. And, you know, maybe he is. But for the DLC, I'd rather have a new villain. I really like what the... Again, the Octo expansion is amazing. If you've never played Splatoon 2 or the Octo expansion, it is so good. And the villain of the Octo expansion is fantastic. I love the final boss fight of that game. So yeah, I think it looks great. I'm excited. We will be streaming it, of course, next month when it comes out. You better believe we will be there. Hopefully, I will not be fucking garbage at it. You never know, but I hope not. Strange. Yeah, and then I think those were the 2 Nintendo trailers we got this week. That sounds about right to me. I can't think of anything else. I mean, we might have gotten more information on that Donkey Kong game. It does just come out in, like, a few weeks. Like, it's not far away at all. I can't remember if it comes out the same day as the Side Order DLC. I think it might come out, like, the week before. But I kind of can't remember. I don't know. I am excited to play that Donkey Kong game. I love on the DS. DS, 3DS, DSi. There was a series of like minis March Again, Mario vs. Donkey Kong. I don't remember what the fuck they were called. They were really simple, really fun games. They were puzzle games. I know people got sick of them because they made like 6 of them. But honestly, I really did enjoy them. I loved those little puzzle games. Specifically the one... There were 2 on the DS. Or one on the DSi. That was like a download. It was one of Nintendo's like first download games. Right, where you had to download it off of the DSiWare store or whatever it was called. So there was that. And then they actually released like a... It was called like Minis March Again, or... It was a follow-up that was like an actual cartridge. It was like an actual like $40 game. And I remember loving that one. And they had level creators. Just all around a lot of fun. Yeah, no, I really do enjoy those puzzle games. And this is kind of like... This is a remake of the game that led into those puzzle games. So, you know, hopefully it'll be great. Ah, fuck. Whatever. Okay, so next up... So there have been so many layoffs this week. It is actually kind of fucking ridiculous. So, right, the gaming industry has been laying off a lot of people. Because, you know, these companies... The problem with modern companies, especially under AAA capitalism, right? Capitalism, capitalism demands infinite growth. That companies must always do better the following year. And that's kind of like, that's one of the things that's ruining streaming services. It's like, Netflix was like, oh, hey, look, it's this streaming service, You go on it, you can watch all your shows. But because Netflix needs infinite growth, right? They have, like, that's why Netflix doesn't want to do account sharing anymore, is because every, semester, every quarter they need to report growing numbers, right? Even if everyone who will ever buy Netflix has bought Netflix, numbers still need to go up. And it works the same way in the AAA gaming space, right? Numbers still need to go up. So in order for these companies to, keep the number going up, they have very short-term solutions, that being laying off their employees. So we had 2 big layoffs. The first one at the start of the week was Riot Games laid off 530 people. I do not remember what percentage of their staff that is. But, right, I remember on, like, Monday morning, maybe Tuesday morning, waking up and seeing that. That, right, they laid off a bunch of people. That this is their cost of doing business. Now a bunch of... And, it makes me wonder, where do these people go? Right? Riot Games laid off 500 people. Where are these people going to go? Right? Like... they all have some sort of skill in the tech industry. But if all these companies are laying people off, where do they go to right? Do they just go back to the, service industry? Because, if every tech company is laying people off, and then you hear all these stories of, like, ghost jobs, where, companies saying that, projecting this idea of infinite growth, have to have job listings posted that are ghost positions, right? They're never actually going to be filled. So it's like, is it impossible to get a tech job as well? Because it kind of sounds like it. So that was how the week started. And then, a few days later, Xbox posts that, or Microsoft specifically, that because of their merger with Activision Blizzard, they are laying off 1,900 employees. A much greater number, right? And I've seen posts on Twitter over the past few days that's just like, oh yeah, my entire team got laid off. Oh yeah, like they came in, it was either Riot or Microsoft, one of these 2 layoffs, where it's like, oh yeah, he was talking with their team on Slack about things. And then all of a sudden, right, they were cut off of Slack, like in the middle of the day. Then what was supposed to be their final day. And I know the micro was a little higher than 1,900. It was like slightly higher than that, but it was, it was a lot of people. My first thought upon saying it was how many of those people were union. Not union, but how many of those people were trying to unionize. I know there had been big pushes in Activision Blizzard recently to try and unionize. And Microsoft has said, like, oh, we're going to work with the union, at least, or, this attempted union for the time being. But I do seriously wonder how many people who were, trying to get a union, which we need to unionize the gaming industry. God, that desperately needs to happen. But of course, these companies are going to union bust however they can. And I would not be surprised if this wasn't specifically done to union bust, but I wouldn't be surprised if union busting was part of this. There's no confirmation of that. That's purely speculation on my part, but I wouldn't be surprised. What else? There's been so many things come out about these Microsoft layoffs. But yeah, it's all for short-term profits. Because, they spent, what was it? It was more than 40 billion. God, I can't remember how many. They spent however many billion buying Activision Blizzard, which, on their next quarterly earnings report will show up as a loss So to make it not show up as a loss, show up as less of a loss, I guess, they now have to fire 1,900 employees. Truly, truly awful. But it is sadly, we've seen this before many times. That's the worst part. Is that right, this has been the year of gaming layoffs. I feel like this Microsoft one is the biggest one. And to be fair, we kind of all saw it coming. We knew that when Microsoft bought Activision Blizzard, they were going to lay off a bunch of people. Right? Microsoft trying to fix their redundancies, for lack of a better word. Right? Like, oh, well, we don't need like a QA department because we already have a QA department. Right? Stuff like that. But yeah, no, of course this merger was going to cost people their jobs. Fucking capitalism, man. Yeah, no, sadly, this was how this played out. Yeah, no, we're just gonna... I mean, we've already seen a bunch in the past, 12 months, and I don't think that's going to change, sadly. I think we're still going to see people laying off. And, of course, a lot of people have been bringing up Satoru Iwata, that when, Nintendo came into dire straits, him and Miyamoto took pay cuts. That they thought it was better for themselves to lose some money. So that way, they could keep their employees on. Because employees who feel safe having a job will do better at their job. And if an employee feels like, yeah, I've got job security, they'll perform better. But, these companies, they've got to pay Bobby Kotick a $500 million exit package. Or whatever the fuck. That was good root beer. But now I'm all out of bottled soda. I had a soda. So, I got these bottles. And I got I got 6 packs that come with, root beer, cream sodas. I think we had a black cherry last week or something like that. We had a bunch of stuff. And then I got this other one that was watermelon, lime, and mint. And I was like, you know what? Sure, let's see how bad could this be? And it was awful. Oh my gosh. It was the mint. Honestly, it probably would have been a lot better if it didn't have the mint. But, there's this post about the flavor that's hey, if you combine cranberry Mike's Hard with cucumber Gatorade, you get the flavor. And that's honestly kind of what this reminded me of. I've never had the flavor, but if I had to describe something as the flavor, it would be mint, lemon, and watermelon. What the fuck was that? And it's mostly the mint, man. The mint is just awful. And it leaves the weirdest aftertaste in your mouth. Oh my god. But I, had it. Yeah. So, our next story. So, Palworld. I have been mostly avoiding talking about Palworld. Not that because Palworld is one of these things where I feel like no matter which side of the argument you're on, everyone's kind of come out as the bad guy, right? Originally, people were saying oh, this game uses AI art, but it seems like it doesn't, because a lot of people are acting as if this game came out of nowheres when it didn't. I remember, okay, so there's a thing where it's you will remember exactly where you are when significant events happens, right? Gen X will say, oh, I remember where I was when the Challenger exploded, right? Millennials will say, I remember where I was when 9/11 happened. Gen Z will say, I remember where I was the first time I heard Jason Derulo's Wiggle, right? Shit like that. And I remember exactly where I was the first time I saw the trailer for Palworld. I think it was during the pandemic, and it was I don't know, at some point into the pandemic, like it had been a few months. And I was sitting in a drive-thru at a Jack in the Box. And they were just, and it was a long, they were super busy, it was a long line. And I was just like, okay, well, I'm sitting here, I'm just going to scroll on Twitter. And I got a comment that popped up, was like, hey, you have to check out this trailer. Don't skip ahead, don't look at anything, just watch this trailer blind. So I sat there and watched it, and I was just blown away. So this was, 2020, maybe 2021, but I think it was 2020. And I was just like, holy shit. What? Because it's Pokemon with guns. And all this AI art stuff is relatively recent, right? Like, most of this AI art stuff has been I know certain things have been around a lot longer than that. What is it called? It's not open. Open AI, but specifically one of the art ones. What was it called? The art one called... Is it Dolly? I think it's Dolly. Like, I remember when they revealed Dolly 2, and I remember seeing that at some sort of event or something. But, right, like, a lot of the modern day, like, AI art stuff is relatively recent, right? So, like, this Palworld and a lot of these designs have been around for a while. So it was like, no, they're not using AI art. Instead, they're stealing Pokemon designs the old-fashioned way. By, basically doing the 3D equivalent of tracing. And it was like, that seemed to be more likely that was what was going on. And then the guy who was, like, trying to, like, line up Pokemon models with the Palworld models, like, he said, like, oh, well, I actually had to resize the models. And so for, like, 12 hours, everyone got angry at him. And then eventually some actual, like, 3D model, like, people who do 3D modeling was like, yeah, resizing models happen all the time. I don't get why the fuck you guys are so mad at this guy. So it's like, people really went off the rails with that. And then, of course, there are the people who are defending Palworld and saying, like, this is the new Pokemon. This is the Pokemon killer. And then there are the people who are defending the Pokemon Company and are like, no, right, they should, get rid of this game, right? They should sue Palworld for copyright infringement. And it's just like, no matter what side of the argument you are on, I feel like you're coming out as the villain, right? The CEO of the company that made this game is, like, big into AI art. Like, they showed off one of their other games that's, like, basically just a Hollow Knight ripoff. Which, they're not the first game to do Hollow Knight ripoff, right? Like, I think of that Cuphead ripoff from a few... Well, it was last year. Right? Like, they're not the first company to do something like this. But, with Palworld selling over 8 million copies in 6 days, they've drawn themselves a lot of attention. Right? So I get why everyone else is, like, freaking out about this. But yeah, no matter which side you pick, you're losing. So all that said, that leads us to the 24th, in which the Pokemon Company releases a statement regarding Palworld. So it's I'm going to read the statement right now. It's inquiries regarding other companies' games. We have received many inquiries regarding other companies' games released in January of 2024. We have not granted any permission for the use of Pokemon intellectual property or assets in that game. We intend to investigate and take appropriate measures to address any acts that infringe on intellectual property rights related to the Pokemon. We will continue to cherish and nurture each and every Pokemon and its world, and work to bring the world together through Pokemon in the future. The Pokemon Company. So that's the statement, right? They don't actually name Palworld. But if there is, if they literally just did trace because I don't think they stole the models. Like, they're not one for one stealing them, but it does kind of look like, if you told me, like, they traced them, like old school art theft, right? Like, people, oh god, who's that famous comic artist who traces porn stars? You know, he draws Sue Storm from the Fantastic Four, but, you know, the face model he's used as a porn star. Right? It's like old school. This is old school stealing here. That's really what it looks like more to me. Right? Like, I don't think they one for one ripped the models. But there are some things that are just way too coincidental. Right? Like they shouldn't be like this. And then there was someone who I saw doing joke speed runs of seeing how fast they could turn a Pokemon model into a Palworld model. Specifically like a drawing. And it's like, that's kind of funny. But yeah, you know, the Pokemon Company is going to look into it. And I know a lot of people have been like, oh, Palworld is, like, this is the game that should light a fire under the Pokemon Company to do something better. And really fucking, like, I get it sold really well, right? 8 million copies, something about it, you know, having a lot of concurrent players and whatnot. But at the end of the day, the gameplay-wise, this is just Ark Survival Evolved with some fucking Pokemon elements, man. Like, come on, this isn't that... Like, this isn't some revolutionary game. Would I like to see Pokemon do their take on an Ark Survival Evolved? Sure. That, I'd be fine with that, but I also, to be fair, I also want them to do their take on Stardew Valley. I mean, yes, we have Ooblets. Ooblets is great. But I would still love to see an official Pokemon Stardew Valley. I feel like that could be a lot of fun. We're in Cowboy Court. A lot different than Kangaroo Court. So yeah, I feel like all this Pokemon Company stuff, just, yeah, okay, this is blown up so much that the Pokemon Company has had to come after it. And we'll see how it actually turns out. I don't know, I think of that. So if you saw H-Bomber Guy's video on plagiarism, I think of, he brings, at the very beginning of that video, he points out a story of like, hey, this is the one time people went up against a company and were like, hey, you're plagiarizing our work, and won, right? And that was like it was in the 80s, I think, maybe the 70s even. And since then, not that many people have won, you know, copyright lawsuits like that, lawsuits of plagiarism. And it's like, yeah, if this game is stealing models, even just like tracing them from Nintendo, is there even anything Nintendo could actually do? Because they would have to fight a giant uphill battle to prove that, no, Palworld did steal, you know, their designs from their game. And while I know the plagiarism cases that H-Bomber guy's talking about, and like copyright and, you know, infringement cases like these are different, and they usually get worked out differently, and there's the whole idiot at a glance test, you know, that if you put an idiot and give them the exact same copy thing, would they be able to tell the difference? Usually I think of stuff like trademarks for that, but Pokemon is in some ways trademarked. Alright, it has, I don't know, a lot of it is. So he just got harassed by the first boss. Oh my gosh. But yeah, you know, I don't know if anything will actually come of this, but it's just crazy that it got wild enough that the actual Pokemon Company themselves chose to respond. Like, this could have easily just been people yelling at themselves till the end of time, but the fact that the Pokemon Company themselves decided to speak out against it, kind of crazy. So, next up, we got Switch 2 stuff. Guess what? Switch 2 stuff always going down. I'm reading from Nintendo Wire here. Let's see. So yeah, Nintendo Wire, according to a new Bloomberg, so they're quoting Bloomberg report, the Nintendo Switch 2 will ship with an 8-inch LCD screen. A small size bump on paper, but a huge difference when compared to the Switch OLED, and then they have a side-by-side image. So the Switch OLED currently has a 7-inch screen, which honestly, I like the Switch OLED screen. I admittedly don't use it that much out of the dock, but I feel like the 7-inch screen, I think, works, and the OLED display actually looks really nice. Like, I'm genuinely impressed with how well the Switch OLED looks. Right? Again, it's a Switch, but for a Switch, it looks really well. So this new one, you know, having an 8-inch display, it's bigger, and you can see the difference. It's, you know, the Switch OLED is a 7-inch, so this is an 8-inch. I don't know what the normal Switch is, or the Switch Lite. I admittedly have no idea. But this is definitely, right, you can literally see an entire inch on there. And yeah, I think, you know, making it a little bigger is good, I guess. I mean, honestly, the Switch is relatively compact for its size. So making it a little bigger, like, I want to say the Steam Deck is, 7.5-inch screen. Maybe am I thinking of the Steam Deck? One of those, like, maybe it's the Steam Deck, maybe it's the Asus thing. One of these systems, maybe it's the Lenovo one, has a 7.5-inch screen. So, you know, it's a little bigger than that. I hope it stays, like, one of my problem with the Steam Deck is that it's kind of bulky. Like, the Switch is very sleek and kind of small, whereas I feel like this is a little bulkier. So I do kind of hope it stays sleek. Like, if they're making it a little bigger, cool. Just, like, don't make it... It's not too big. It's just, I don't want it... I want it to be bigger screen, but not thicker. I feel like the thickness of the Switch is fantastic. I'm sure some people would disagree. I'm sure some people want it bulkier. I don't know anybody who'd want it thinner. Like, it's basically the thinness of... It's a little thicker than my phone, and I'm actually perfectly fine with that. Right? So I'm sure there's somebody who wanted, like, the same thickness of a phone. But no, I don't want it that much thicker. I think that's what it comes down to. Yeah, and then I know there have been rumors for a while now that this thing was going to have an LCD display instead of an OLED display, and that probably in a year, probably 2 years after release, they will release an OLED model. And I know some people are disappointed by that, and I understand that, especially because, again, the Switch OLED has a nice screen. But if they're doing it specifically to keep the price down, I'm actually kind of fine with it. Like, again, it's a very personal thing, because I don't really take my Switch outside. I don't really have much, right, like, I don't really use the display that much, and I know, like, OLED screens look really nice outside, whereas LCD screens have problems going outside, but I think it'll be fine. Right? I have faith in Nintendo and them making a Switch 2, especially if it's gonna, you know, increase the price by like $50 to $100. I totally understand why they would keep the price down. Right? Why they would use an LCD screen to just shave off $50 to $100. Because again, I don't want to be more expensive than $400. I think $400 is their upper limit, because the Switch is $300. Right? Like, if this thing is the same price as a PS5, I think they've screwed up. Right? I think they've made it too expensive. You want to keep it cheaper. But yeah, that's the Switch. So that's the Switch 2 rumor this week. I don't think there was anything else. You know, it's pretty standard Switch 2 rumor. I'm just ready to see the console. Just fucking reveal it, so that way we can stop talking about it. I think they're gonna do it sooner rather than later. Like, I know some people think we're gonna have to wait until E3. No, we're gonna get it before that. We're gonna... I still think there's even though we got those 2 trailers, I still think there is some sort of direct coming in February. And then I could see them one morning, we wake up in March, and it's like, hey, in 2 days there's going to be a special Nintendo announcement. Stay tuned at like 6 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. or would it be 8 or 9 p.m. Eastern? Right? Whatever it is, and that's when it happens. Switch 2, everything's great. Oh, hey, look, it's Old Man Lemon. Remember him from the first game? Yeah. There's a whole mafia plot in this game as well. Like, the villain of the first game, like, killed our father. And Old Man Lemon was like our father's friend. Like, they worked together in the mob. And the pickle we're currently working for was like our mob rival, but, you know, now we're friends or whatever. It's a weird game, but, you know, I like it. Alright, so WIBE... Do I have anything for WIBE? I don't have any foodstuffs. Because I talked about that Jack in the Box burger, right? Jack in the Box did a smash burger that I thought was actually pretty fucking good. And it performed so well that they sold out. And they're going to be bringing it back next month. And I'm actually excited to see it back. I like Jack in the Box. I know it is trash. I am fully aware. I still love it. Okay. I don't love it. You know, I can work with Jack in the Box. Most of the time. I do not like their tiny tacos. I like their normal tacos, right? Big, greasy fucking messes. I like Jack in the Box's normal tacos. Their tiny tacos just taste completely different, and I do not like them. But yeah, they're doing smash burgers. They're actually pretty decent. I don't think it's going to kick off like a smash burger war or anything. Like, oh, all the food places are doing smash burgers now. But I was genuinely impressed with it. God, we're filling up our money too quick. I have drank way too much water today. Like, you know how you can overhydrate? I don't think I've gotten that far yet. But, like, I drank probably a gallon. And then I just had that glass. Oh my gosh. Yeah, maybe I drink a little too much water today. What else? Did I do anything else? Fuck. Oh, I did watch an anime. So, at some point in the past... Where's the kiwi blue? What? Whatever. So at some point... Probably a year or two ago, during either this show or during Animal Crossing. God, Animal Crossing was so long ago in retrospect. Like, I don't really think about it like that, but no, it was actually... It'll be, what, 3 years? In, like, a little over a month? Almost 2 months, I guess? Yeah, that's wild. But, so at some point, I was recommended a manga called The 100 Girlfriends That Really, 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 Really Love You. And I was like, okay, you know, it's like some sort of like harem anime, or, you know, harem manga. I was like, sure, whatever, you know, I'll pick this up. It came from somebody I trusted, and I really enjoyed it. Like, I was really impressed with it. Because, well, yes, it is a harem anime. It's a guy with 100 girlfriends. It works so well because it is so sincere. Because while the show is the 100 Girlfriends That Really, Really Love You, the main character, the guy, also really, really, really loves his girlfriends. And he loves all of them equally. He'll write, like, he jokes about, right, that if his girlfriends don't love him back, he'll kill himself. Because he needs, right, in the same way that they need his love, he needs their love, and he loves them more than anything. Like, I think the show works because it is so sincere, right? It just shows a bunch of people who really love each other. And I was just like, yeah, you know, this is really good. Eventually, right, I read like 80 issues of the manga. And I stopped reading years ago. Probably back in 2020, maybe 2023, but probably 2020. 2022, I mean. I probably stopped reading in 2022. But at the time, I was like, you know what, this is actually pretty, right? I was really good. But once you start getting into it, like, after the first, like, 6 girls, it just kind of falls into a formula where he meets a girl, right? They zing, right? They fall in love. He goes out on a date with her, comes across some sort of problem where he has to ask one of the other girlfriends for help. Solves the problem. The new girl joins the harem. Then you get like a wacky adventure with with the new girl interacting with the old girls. And then boom, it's on to the next one. It is as formulaic as a show like Phineas and Ferb or Regular Show, right? Something like that. It follows a very specific formula. And it's doing it for 100 girlfriends. And so I kind of, after it kind of got into, especially because a lot of it I read in I read the entire, up to where it currently was at the time. Again, around chapter 80 something. I read in 3 weeks. So I did the entire show, or the entire manga back to back at the time. And so by the end of it, I was kind of like, okay, you know what, I'm kind of done with this formula. Right, I feel like in theory I've seen everything it has to offer, and it hasn't really switched it up. Like the first 6 girls, right, they have that formula in there, but they experiment more with it, right? Because those are the first girls, he gets to spend more time with them. Whereas, the later ones, things are a little bit more complicated, So I was like, it's a good manga. I do like it, but I was kind of like, at some point I was done with it. I was like, I've seen everything I need to see from this. Well, I remembered recently that the anime came out last year. That they turned it into an anime. And I was like, oh yeah, you know what, I'll check this out again. It's been, like I said, 2 years. It's honestly probably been 2 years to the letter. I want to say I stopped reading in, January of, 2022. Right? Somewhere's around there. So I was like, yeah, you know what? I'll see the anime, right? It's dubbed and everything. I'm not even gonna get into the sub versus dub thing. I was just gonna check it out dubbed. And yeah, it's fine. I still think it works, the sincerity of it. The main character is still really likable. Admittedly, some of the girls I don't like. The tsundere is okay. Sometimes she works really well. Sometimes she annoys the crap out of me. It really just kind of depends on what's going on. The tsundere is okay. The pink-haired girl I want to say the pervert. Because one of the things that I hate about some of these harem animes is how much of a pervert the main character is. Right? I think of High School DxD. Fucking hate the main character of High School DxD. Worst part of the show. Maybe. I don't know. I would not be surprised if there is something worse in that show. But I fucking hate the main character. So, right. It's really nice that I like the main character in the show. Yes, he really, really loves his girlfriends. And he wants to kiss all of them. And while, yes, they do make some perverted jokes. Right? Because it's a harem anime. They never... Right? It's nothing like High School DxD, is I guess what I'm trying to say. So I like the main character, and yeah, the pink-haired girl is kind of they make fun of her as the pervert. And then, of course, there's her mom, which, yeah. There's the bookworm who only speaks through books, which I think is a fine enough gimmick. There's they call her AI, the robot girl. And I like her. I think she's probably my favorite of the first 6. I'm like, yeah, she's fun. And then there is the scientist. I fucking hate the scientist. I hate how much screen time they give her. Because her whole thing is she's a scientist who makes drugs, right? And her drugs do crazy things to people. And it just annoys the crap out of me. She's doing the whole lolly gimmick, she wears diapers, and it just fucking annoys the shit out of me. I hate this character. I know the librarian is shy and she's small, but I'm fine with it because they never over sexualize her or anything. Whereas the scientist just feels like the author's fetishes. right? Where it's like, yeah, no, this is just clearly fetish shit. Would it be better if she was permanently an adult? I don't know. Admittedly, I don't like her personality that much either. But no, the scientist just annoys the crap out of me. So yeah, that. And I just hate how much she's in it. Right? Like, if one character is gonna come back, it's always fucking her. Because, you know, because of the way they write her in the show, she has so much, like, she could do so much. Because, you know, she could create a magic potion that does everything. God, it annoys me. And then finally, you know, the anime ended exactly where I thought it was going to. With the, reveal, right, with the mom trying to take away the pink-haired girl, and then them coming to rescue her, and then the main character falling in love with the mom, and then they have a sleepover. And I was like, yep, that was at the time when I read the manga. I was like, this is exactly where the first season is going to end. And sure enough, that's exactly where it ends. They set up that next season, right? They set up the 4 girls for the next season. The abrasive one, the beauty, is she a cultist? God, I kind of can't remember. And then the baseball player. And I'm like, okay, the last girl I remember when I was reading the manga was the gal. I remember them introducing the gal. And that was kind of where I was like, okay, I'm kind of, like, I feel like I've seen everything this show has to offer. But for those first 80 episodes, or those first 80 issues, I was really impressed. And I'm actually going to pick up the manga again. I don't know for how much. Because I'm pretty sure the length has doubled. Right? In the past 2 years, they're now up to, like, issue 160. Because it's 100 fucking girlfriends, man. There's a lot they gotta go through. So I'm pretty sure I've got a lot more to do. If I actually do pick it up again. But I'm definitely considering it. Probably not right now, but maybe in the next few weeks. But I did watch the show. I finished the show this week. So yeah. Other than that, the only other thing I can do, we're playing Turnip Boy here. I'm actually having a decent time. It's not as much as a roguelike as I thought it was. Like, sure, when you enter the elevators, the rooms seem to randomize. Right? Like, so every elevator is randomized. But, like, the actual, like, floor layout seems to stay the same every time. So, like, there are roguelite elements, but no, it's not actually a roguelite. Which kind of surprises me, but not. I don't have any complaints about it, actually. I'm having a good time with this. You know. Yeah. We got to get that cardboard box. I gotta save up for that, probably. But there's so much stuff I want in here as well, like that. So the other thing, so I've been reading. So, right, I've talked about, right, Percy Jackson's going on. We'll talk about the new episode here in a second. But, I was thinking about, and I was like, you know what? I've read the original Percy Jackson. I read all 5 books when they were, not when they were coming out, but near the end. Like, I think I read the last 2 when they came out. So I picked up the books right before book 4 came out, Battle of the Labyrinth. And then I read from there. I read Heroes of Olympus. It took me forever to get the last Heroes of Olympus. I'll be honest, I picked up The Blood of Olympus, read the first, like, chapter or 2, put the book down, and did not touch it again for another, like, year. I think I've admitted that before. But, you know, I eventually did finish it, and then they released Trials of Apollo. And I didn't even know the book was coming out. I was at Target one day, and I was walking past the books. I think I went to buy a video game or something. And while I was there, I walked, because the books were right next to the games. And I was like, oh, hey, look at that. Trials of Apollo. Oh, look, there's a new Percy Jackson book. Sure, I'll pick this up as well. Why not? I think it was on sale as well. So I picked it up. Acorn tears. And I read the first, like, 5 chapters. And then I didn't touch it again. Like, I have not thought about it. And that was... When did Trials of Apollo come out? I'm going to guess 2016. I'm gonna guess 20... Yep, May 3rd, 2016. I don't know what game came out May 3rd. It was probably sometime in May. Was that... No, Splatoon came out the previous year. Yeah, Splatoon was 2015. God, was it Paper Mario Color Splash? It might have been. Oh, fuck. There was a Reddit post about someone being like, hey, I made my kid a deal that if I want to say he, like, read for 10 days in a row, I'd buy him any video game he wanted, and he wants Paper Mario Color Splash. How do I get a Wii U? It was like a Reddit post or something about that. Maybe it was a TikTok. I don't know. It was kind of cute. I can't even remember if it was reading. It was something. Oh, it's a ravioli-oli. So yeah, I picked up, I didn't touch it again. I didn't buy any of the sequel books. I just kind of was like, whatever. But, you know, with the Percy Jackson show coming out, and I saw all 5, right, a collection with all 5 Trials of Apollo books was on sale, like, last month, back in December. And I was like, you know what, sure, fuck it. Maybe I'll actually finally read these. I'm in a Percy Jackson mood. So, I technically own the Hidden Oracle twice now. I have a hardback and a softback. But, I picked it up, and I've read it over the past, like, week. I zoomed through it actually pretty quick. It was okay. I now know when I read the Chalice of the Gods last year, I had pointed out, like, hey, they make a big reveal about halfway through that Sally, Percy's mom, is pregnant. And I was like, but wait, I already know this. Why do I already know that she's pregnant? It's because they reveal it in the first, like, 5 chapters of Trial of Apollo. So, right, I read that back in 2016, knew about it, and then just kind of forgot about it because I didn't check out the book until again this year. But, so I read The Hidden Oracle. It was okay, you know. Admittedly, I don't love Apollo. I know he's a god. He's narcissistic. Still doesn't change the fact that he annoys the crap out of me sometimes. Meg McCaffrey is okay. Alright, he's okay, or she's okay. I like a spoiler alert for the full book ahead. Spoiler alert for a 8-year-old book now? Yeah, all coming up on 8 years old. I like so one of the things that I pointed out I remember from the original books is how little the Childs of Demeter matter. Like, there is never the only Child of Demeter you ever meet is Katie Gardner. There might be I can't remember whose godly parent Dakota is. There's a character called Dakota in The Son of Neptune, who might be a daughter of Ceres. I kind of cannot remember. But, right, like, the children of Demeter never matter in these books. Right, like, Katie Gardner is mostly forgotten. And I honestly don't know if Katie and Miranda Gardner are the same person. Because I swear in the original Percy Jackson, like, in the Last Olympian, they mention a character called Katie Gardner. But in this book, they mention Miranda Gardner. And part of me is like, is Katie short for Miranda? I kind of can't remember, and I just couldn't be bothered to look it up. Are they sisters? I have no fucking idea. But right, the Demeter kids have never mattered, so I was like, oh, cool, we got a Demeter kid in here, finally. And then her rings turning into blades, her Peaches, the fucking grain spirit. I was like, okay, and she plays it very rough and grumble. We have Will Solace and Nico are together, and they're fantastic together. I love the whole thing about the doctor's note. How, he has a doctor's note that allows him to sit with us. That's very cute. I do have their book as well, The Sun and the Star. I'm just gonna read I have to read the Trials of Apollo before I can read that one. At least that's what I was told. I actually bought that one when it released. I was like, oh, that's a fun one. And I was like, that's a good idea for a book. I'll get around to that after I finish all these. But yeah, I do like so right. A lot of the right, even though the gods are terrible, they're narcissistic, right? They're self-centered, just awful people, right? There is elements of the Percy Jackson series that, like, no, some of the gods do love their kids, right? Poseidon loves Percy, Hermes loves Luke, and one of the things I do like about the Trial of Apollo is that, right, he gets to interact with 3 of his kids, Will and the 2 others whose names I'm forgetting. And I like that, no, he, like, really cares for his kids, right? At one point, 2 of them gets kidnapped, and he's like, oh, I will save them. I love that when they find out that Apollo's now mortal, their priorities are like, oh, am I going to lose my ability to sing? Am I going to lose my skills at archery? And Apollo is just like, yeah, you guys have your priorities straight. I'm proud of you. And I was like, that's funny. Just for the way they present that character. He annoys the crap out of me sometimes. But right, it's just Apollo trying to prove his, godhood, right? Trying to, he's no longer a god. So now he's got to complete a task to retake the oracles, which is what they're setting up. And yes, I have started the Dark Prophecy. One of the things I do not like is they're setting up the villain, Nero, as being the biggest bad in the series yet. Right? Like, oh, in the first book you had Kronos, and in the second book you have the Giants. But guess what? They were being funded, right? Like, Nero was their financial provider. This makes him the biggest bad guy we've seen in the series yet. I think that's fucking boring. Not every battle has to be a battle for the fate of the world. I would be fine with a smaller scale villain. Right? Just okay, yes, I know I criticize Chalice of the Gods for being a story that doesn't need to exist. I like the fact that its villain is very small scale. But yeah, them setting up this Nero guy as, like, the next biggest threat, I don't exactly gel with that. I'm like, no, the way they set up Kronos and the Giants / Gaia made them much bigger threats. I feel like Nero is just a lot less interesting. Again, I like the stuff they're doing with Meg and Nero. I think that's interesting. That definitely throws a new dynamic in there. But I'm not impressed with Nero as a villain. I don't know. I'll admit, I would say, like, I've not heard great things about these books. But if I'm going to be perfectly honest, I just haven't heard people talk about these books. Right? Like, besides for something that happens in the Burning Maze, which I'll get to, right? I just don't hear people talking about these books at all. But yeah, it was fine. Like, I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. It was a book that existed. I read it actually relatively quickly. I do like that they spend most of the time, right? Like, in Chalice of the Gods, I liked that the entire story took place in New York. I kind of like how in this one, right, the entire thing took place in basically just Camp Half-Blood. Right? Like, I'm fine if you're doing smaller scale stories, give us smaller scale locations. In the Dark Prophecy right now, they're in, Illinois? Don't remember which city they're in. Maybe they're in Indianapolis, actually. Wherever they are in the Dark Prophecy, I'm going to predict right now the entire book is going to take place in that one city, right? Like, I'd be so amazed if they actually moved on to a different city. Which, that might, when all the previous, right, when the first 5 books were all these, like, globe-trotting, or, crossing America. Like, oh, well, in this book we got to go from New York to LA, right? In the Sea of Monsters, they go down to Florida. Did they go to Seattle in Titan's Curse? Or did they go back to LA? I kind of don't remember. Battle of the Labyrinth takes them all over the place. And then, I know Last Olympian mostly keeps them in New York. But, right, I'm kind of like, if we're just going to focus on this one. And then, of course, Heroes of Olympus took them all the way to Rome and then Athens. It's like, if you're going to do something smaller scale, just go for it. Sure. Yeah, Trials of Apollo. I will be following this up, right? Like I said, I'm already reading The Dark Prophecy. I'm a few chapters in. I've met Emmy and Joe. Is it just I can only remember Joe, and I like them. I like the reveal that happens there. We'll talk more about it whenever I finish it. I don't know. I'm curious about their daughter, like that. Especially specifically with the headless guy. Like, there's clearly something going on there, and there is a part of me that thinks this is going to end up like the Moon Spirit in Avatar: The Last Airbender, where it's like, no, I don't want to see this turn out the way I think it's going to. But we'll see. So, I guess Percy Jackson, let's actually talk about the show now. So, episode 7 sees them finally going into the underworld. And again, it's still just kind of weird. One of the weird things about this show is how the characters just go in, like, knowing the myths, knowing what's going on. Because, right, in the books, they just stumble upon things. Where I was amazed in this episode, Percy's, like, trying to figure out, like, what's going on, and he realizes, like, oh shit, this is Kronos. Like, Kronos is doing something here. And so I don't know how to feel about that. Like, the fact that he kind of knows what's going on just kind of makes things not disappointing to say. It's just part of me is like, is this a very, like, intentional thing? Because of when I read the book as a kid, I knew very little information about any of these myths, right? Like, I knew some basic shit, like I knew who the gods were, I knew who Medusa was, I knew some very basic shit. But, in the books, they come across a bunch of shit that, as a kid, you've never heard of. And in the same way that you've never heard of it, the characters in the books haven't heard of it either. But because this show is made for, a more modern audience, but specifically an audience who has already read the books, right? In the same way that I know who, Echidna is nowadays, right? I didn't know when I first read the book, but I know who Echidna is now, right? Is the show made with that intention? That, like, instead of, like, wasting our time being like, oh, well, who's this weird random character? It's just like, it's Echidna. Let's just say it's Echidna, right? I don't want to say they're, like, not wasting our time. It's just like, let's cut to the chase, right? Of course, does that kind of alienate new people who have never read the books? In theory, yes, but it doesn't actually really seem to be hampering people. Like, I've seen people who are watching the show for the first time without reading the books, and they are really enjoying it. So maybe it's actually fine. Like, maybe actually nothing has changed. But it's definitely a weird thing. Like, it's definitely weird for me. Like, oh, wow, okay, we've never done this before. But no, some of the things going into the underworld, I find it really weird that them playing with Cerberus was fine. I'm surprised they don't, because I'm pretty sure in the books they take a ferry over the river Styx, because, that's how it fucking works in the mythology. In this one, they climb a wall to get over the river Styx. But, like, this show is kind of really obsessed with setting up future books. And, Percy Jackson kind of takes a dip in the river Styx at one point. So it's really weird that they just kind of skip over it. I think all the stuff with Cerberus is fine, right? Them playing with the dog, I think all works well enough. It's really weird that... So they go through Asphodel. And I'm like 99% sure that Asphodel is like an endless field of wheat. Right? Where it's just kind of like souls who lived very neutral lives end up. But in this show, it's like a bunch of like trees. And, right, it's for people with, like, regrets. And because Annabeth has regrets, she gets fucking Atreus. Is it Atreus? She's the fucking horse from the Neverending Story, right? Who gets stuck in the swamp of sadness. I cannot remember the horse's name. I want to say it's Atreus, but probably not. Right? She gets fucking stuck there. And I was like, okay. And, like, I know her regret is that she wants to see her dad again. Right, right, with everything that's gone on, she misses him, she wants to see him again, and that's why she okay, we got a Garfield mug. Right, that's her regret. So, I get where they're going with that. But they use that as an excuse to just take her out of the second half of the episode, and I have no idea why they did that. Is this like the thing where, like, you know, like, if you read, Jeanette McCurdy? Right, if you read, it's Jeanette McCurdy, right? Her book, I'm Glad My Mom Is Dead, right? She talks about an episode of her show Sam and Cat where, because Ariana Grande wasn't able to film that day, they just locked her in a box and basically wrote her out of the episode. Was that how it was here? Like, could the actress not be on set that day, so they just had to write her out of the second half of the episode? Like, it's, like, the one thing I thought they were setting up is that, because Annabeth misses the shoes trying to grab Grover into Tartarus, right? She misses that, so she doesn't know that Luke is the one, right? She doesn't put all that stuff together. Because immediately when the shoes drag Grover into Tartarus, they find the lightning bolt. And I was like, because they found the lightning bolt, they're now going to forget about the whole shoe thing. Right? They're just going to completely forget about it. And I was like, that would make sense. And, you know, because Annabeth isn't there, she's not going to put together the pieces. And I was like, okay. And then, no, he still figures out that Kronos is behind everything. It also is, I thought, when Grover, because we all knew, right, he was given 4 pearls. And everyone was like, he's just going to lose one of the pearls. And, well, we all knew Grover was. And guess what? Grover lost one of the pearls. And I thought he was going to lose it in Tartarus. No, he loses it in the dog's mouth, because he gets eaten by the Cerberus. And it was just kind of like, okay, that's kind of underwhelming. And it's not like Annabeth gets stuck in the Swamp of Sadness, I should say. She, you know, uses the pearl to escape. But eventually they go to Hades' throne room, and again, all the actors who they've got playing the gods do a fantastic job here, and Hades is no exception. Him just coming on screen like, hey kids, you want a snack? You know, you want to go take a, right? You want to take a seat? You want to have a snack? Whatever the fuck he says. I'm like, okay, this is good, right? It's a good subversion of expectations, you know, because again, the movie just plays into the idea that Hades is Satan. They literally called the underworld hell in the movie. So, right, them immediately being like, nope, Hades is, right, a lot more casual. He goes, right, and of course he reveals that, no, he's missing his Helm of Darkness, and that's why he's here to trade with Percy for his mom. But I do love the moment when Percy puts together that it's Kronos, and he tells that to Hades, and his immediate reaction is, let me give you shelter. Right? You and your mom, stay here with me, we'll keep the lightning bolt, and we will prepare for war with Kronos. If what you're saying is true, then the Olympians have already lost. So, right, it's basically, like, there's a part of me that's like, this is Hades trying to control the prophecy, right? Like, there's a thing he does with Nico in the Last Olympian, where it's like he's trying to set up Nico as, you know, the prophecy. Right, things happen. And that kind of what this, like, it's Hades trying to control Percy, right? So that way he can control the prophecy of Kronos coming back. But I like how it plays out here, right? With just Hades giving that heel turn. But then Percy refuses. He refuses to give him the bolt. And they run away without the mom. But Percy promises, like, hey, I'll get you back your Helm of Invisibility. And then the episode ends with the 3 of them on the beach as Ares walks up. And then, you know, the next episode is going to start with him fighting Ares and yada, yada, yada. They still haven't really addressed the whole he missed the deadline thing. All right, I wonder how they're going to handle that. But, you know, we'll find out. But no, again, it's making some weird changes. I don't love them setting up Kronos is fine. They were going to set it up regardless at the end of the show. Them just setting up a little earlier is just kind of weird. Him knowing his mythology already is still just kind of something you got to get used to. But I don't hate the show. It is different. Right? So Scott Pilgrim takes off. Right? Everyone wanted a really faithful adaptation. That's not what we got with Scott Pilgrim. But what we got with Scott Pilgrim was still really good. And I wish I could say the same thing about this show. I wish in the same way I could say, like, yeah, Scott Pilgrim, right, just like back to back each episode, this show is fantastic. I wish I could sit down and say the same thing about this show. I wish I could be like, yep, this show is fantastic, right? Even with all the changes, I think they're nailing it. That's not how I feel about this. Even with all the changes they've made, I don't really feel like they're nailing everything. Not that it's bad, it's just not as good as I'd want it to be. I do hope we get more of it, of course. I want them to do all 5 books. I don't really care if they do the Heroes of Olympus. I don't need to see Jason or fucking Leo or fucking Coach Hedge. Right, I don't need to see those characters. But I want them to do the first 5 books. I really hope we get that. How much are they going to change in the future? Who fucking knows? But for the moment, again, I'm enjoying it. I just wish I liked it more. So yeah. Anything else? No, I think that's it. I guess we'll just finish this run and then we'll end off. Yeah, that sounds good to me. We've got, what, 2+ minutes left? I don't know. I still got some other things I want to see if I can find. I've been enjoying this Turnip boy. You know, we've been playing for, what, like an hour and a little under an hour and a half. I'm enjoying it, you know. It's kind of what I expected, but kind of not what I expected at the same time. But I feel like it still is working. Like, I'm still having a good time. I don't feel like it's too hard or anything. This casual difficulty is working fine for me. It does remind me, you know, there are elements that remind me of, like, Gungeon and whatnot. Like, the fact that the enemies shoot, like, these big bullets. The fact that we have a fucking weapon that's shooting fucking records. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that reminds me of Gungeon here. But that's not a bad thing. You know, I love our little Turnip boy. Huh, no, it's a pretty decent game, actually. Huh. Oh. Yeah, $1,000, that's nice. I don't know, we gotta get a bigger wallet at some point. What else? Ribbit. Yeah, like that, you could totally see that weapon in Gungeon. A frog gun that shoots flies. Perfect Gungeon material. So yeah. The only other thing I can think of, and I don't want to talk about this, but it has been happening the past couple of days, is all the stuff with Chugga Conroy. Because, right, the original stuff came out with Lady Emily, and I kind of mentioned it last week. Right, because I feel like no matter what I say about it, right, it's just awful. And so eventually he put out his apology, right, saying that he's going to do better, he's going to get better. It seems like since then he's checked into rehab or something, but also since then, a bunch of other people have come out and spoken against him. Including some stuff this morning that was a chat log when he was 18 or 19, talking to a 15-year-old girl, and it's bad. Like, it's really bad. And I know I said last week, like, oh, you know what? This just means we can't have heroes anymore. Like, you know what? The only heroes you can have are fictional, right? The ones you create in your head. Because you can't even, like, take somebody else's characters and claim that that's your hero. Because, you know, you never, when they're going to turn into a fucking cop, right? So you just can't have heroes anymore. But it also, all this shit got me thinking, like, okay, this is gonna sound bad, but let me explain. It makes me start, with everything that's happened, it makes me start to think, am I part of the problem? Right? Not that I'm an abuser or anything like that, but the fact that we're constantly hearing stories of these YouTubers, these influencers, who, you know, do these terrible things. And, you know, we're the ones watching them, giving them a platform. Are we part of the problem? Am I part of the problem? Am I just such a bad judge of character that I keep enjoying content by horrible people? Like, it's Red from Overly Sarcastic Productions. Around the time everything happened with James Haywood, put out a thing talking about how, like, you know, when somebody does something horrible, and you feel horrible about it, it's imposter syndrome, right? It's actually a worse form of imposter syndrome, because it makes you because it makes you think that you might be like these guys even when you're not. And that's exactly what I'm feeling this week. Right? Like, oh, you know, I may not be, right, I've never met these guys, I have nothing to do with them. But the fact that this shit keeps happening makes me think, like, oh god, am I part, like, I'm not the problem, but I'm not helping anything. And I'm just such a bad judge of character that I keep liking. And I know, oh, they're disguising, you know, they're playing friendly. It's like cult leaders, honestly. Like, I know there's all this stuff about how charming cult leaders are. And then you watch the documentary and it's the least charming man you've ever met. But, you know, for somebody it's charming. And is it just that these horrible people I just keep finding charming and entertaining, and I just keep picking wrong? Not that, like, everyone who's ever been canceled I like. It's just, it's happened more often than I'd like to admit. Right, like, I didn't start watching the Try Guys until after everything came out. But, like, if I had started watching them before that, would I have liked it? Yeah, probably. You know? Is it... It's just, everything fucking sucks. Man, it fucking... Oh, my God. I feel the victims, man. That's what really matters at the end of the day, though. Right? I may bitch and moan here, but who cares about me? It's the victims that matter. And I hope everything works out in the end. And, like, I'm not wishing, like, I know, right, Chugga Conroy's in rehab or something like that. Like, I don't want him to kill himself. Like, I don't want it to go that far. Right? Like, I don't know. I've owned a copy of the book So You've Been Cancelled for years now, but I've never actually read it. But, like, now, if I wasn't reading Trials of Apollo, I would definitely read that right now. Just to see what it says. Because it's like, what the fuck do you do after this? Right? Because I know there are some people who just go back to it and try making stuff again, right? I know there are some who just get banned from Twitch, and then there are some who just go on to do other jobs. I don't know. I don't know what to do. It's just an awful situation all around. And it all started from somebody talking on how, right, people have pointed this out, that, oh, imagine making a post talking about how much you like him, just for it all to blow up and destroy his career. All right, let's end off there. You know, just on that terrible note. We'll be back next week. Back with maybe more of this, maybe some Splatoon. I think there's a big run next week or something like that. Maybe we'll do that, but whatever. So with that, whatever. With that, I hope you all enjoyed. Stay tuned for more. Until next time, peace.